In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make a wooden crate in 3ds Max. So the first thing that we want to do is on the right panel, you'll be able to see a plus icon. So this means that we're going to add something into the scene. The default drop down should be standard primitives, and you should be able to see these shapes here. So what we're going to do for a standard wooden crate in like a medieval or fantasy type game, it's usually a cube. So what we want to do is click box. By default it has it on the box mode where you can have rectangular boxes and that kind of thing, but we want a symmetrical square cube. So what we can do here is if we click on this cube, then it sort of limits it to only being symmetrical. So if we put that in, I like to have nice round numbers, so what we can do whilst we've still got this selected and we've just put it in the scene, we can change the length, width and height. I like to put it all to 100. And then we've got a nice uniform cube there. So if we press Q, we can press Q, and then it takes it into selection mode, so then we're not going to be putting loads of more boxes in by accidentally clicking. So what we can do here, if we press W to go into movement mode, we can try move it to the 0 point, or at the bottom of the screen you can see coordinates here. So if you right click on the up and down arrows, it actually resets it back to 0. So that's a really quick way to reset some coordinates to the 0 point. So once we've got this, we then need to convert this to an editable poly. Without that, we can't do anything more than just changing the length, width and height, and then changing the segments, so we can add more segments in, but we don't need to do that for this wooden crate. So if you hold right click on the shape and then convert to at the bottom, and then convert to editable poly, this will then change this second window. So this is to create and this is to modify this second window here. So this then puts this into an editable poly. We can start selecting vertices, edges, loops, faces and the whole object. So like here we can start selecting that. I've got it in circle mode, so I'll change that. So we can start selecting everything that we need. What we want to do is go into the polygon selection and select all the faces. If we hold Alt and hold middle click, we can start to rotate around, and as long as these are glowing up, then we know that we've got them all selected. So what we want to do then is on the further down on the right menu, you'll see edit polygons and a few options that we can choose from to start editing this shape. So what we want to do is inset. I like to click on this window next to the button. This then brings a pop-up which stays there until we change all the values and then press this tick, and then that applies it to what we've got. So what we want to do is probably change this to 15. It's currently not doing anything. That's because we need to change this from group to by polygon. This then does it individually for each shape. So then we've got this nice inset for a wooden crate. We press this tick and that applies that to the shape now. So if we change it to have edge faces, we can see that those faces now are inset. So keep that selection there. I just press Ctrl Z to undo that, so it's reselected it. Then what we can do is we can extrude. So again, press this window. It gives us a lot more freedom. We don't need to worry about that. This window is going to stay there until we press either this tick, this cross or this plus. Allows us to apply that, and it keeps that window open and we can do it again and again. But what we want to do is do a minus number. So when I did the inset, I did 15. So then I want to do minus 10. So it's not going to intersect with each other. It's going to be nice and inset, but it's not going to intersect and cause issues when we put it into Engine. So we've done the extrude inwards and then we've applied that. So now this is a nice frame. The only thing left is to do the diagonal braces that I like to put in. It shows a bit more structural support. So what we can do then is we need to add another box in. So add that cube in, make it have some sensible dimensions. So we'll just do 10 by 10 by 10, find out which one we need to elongate, set that to 100, and then select this, change the coordinates to 0. Now, an issue that we have, so we could rotate it and have it pointing out, or we could change the pivot. Now, I'm going to be changing the pivot later, so for now we're just going to rotate it. So what you can do, if you press E, that changes to rotation mode. You can freely rotate it and then change the number at the bottom from whatever decimal point is to a nice solid 90, so it's rotated 90 degrees. Or what I like to do is at the top here you can see these snapping options. I typically don't really use any others other than the angle snapping. This then lets you snap it to solid numbers, so currently it's at 5. If you right click this you can change the increments of the angle to something else, but I like to stick it to 5. It gives me enough freedom without it being too into the decimals or too low number. So rotate this 90 degrees, and then what we want to do is set this to the middle point here. So because I set this cube to 100 by 100 by 100, I know that if I put the Z to 50, that will be at the middle point for this cube. So if I just push that in, as soon as I can see that this is going through the shape, so the outline is going into the shape, you can start to see the other shape's colour. I know that this is now intersecting. What we then want to do is have it diagonal, so rotate it 45 degrees that way, and then we've got this brace nicely put in. If you want to push it in more, you can just move it, or you can scale it, you can do whatever you'd like. But then with this, we just need to duplicate that. But first, we want to optimize this. So if we click on, look at the left-hand side, if we click on the box 1, that's the first box that we put, click the eyeball, and that will hide that. What we then want to do is take away these faces that we can't see. So the only faces that we can see is this one here, and this one here. So all the rest of them can be gone, and the game, and it would be optimized for an engine. So what we need to do, hide this, change this to an editable poly, do the face selection, so I know that this, and this want to be visible. We want that still there, but then we just want the others selected. So if it makes it easier, you can just have this visible, select the ones that you want to keep. So holding Control and left clicking allows you to do multiple selection. And then hide this. If you press Control and I, that will invert the selection. So anything that isn't selected will then be selected. And then we just press delete, and that's that. So that's nice and optimized for the engine. So I know it's only 3 polygons that have gone, but if you've got multiple of these in a scene, maybe hundreds, that's saving hundreds of polygons for the engine to render. So what we want to do there is be able to rotate this around and have it perfectly snapped in. So the easiest way to do that is to change the pivot. So what we need to do there, on the right hand side, the third window in, we can see at the top here, affect pivot only. This is where we can start to change the pivot and it doesn't affect the object. So if we click that, it changes the selections to have these massive arrows. So what we want to do there is change the positions so that X in this case would be at 0. We want to keep that 50 in there, but then we also want to change the rotation. So change that all back to 0, 0 that all out, and then when we rotate it, it's going to be nicely around this shape. So we want to click Affect Pivot Only to take that option off, and now we can just start rotating it around. So if you hold Shift and then start to rotate it, clones it. So because we've got the angle snapping, I know that once that says 90, that's going to be what we want. And then if we let go, we can copy this, or we can make an instance, but for this instance, I'm just going to do copy. And then I know that I want to do this one and 2 more. So we want to do 3 copies of this. And then that's nicely around the shape. And then do one for above, just 1 copy of that, and then 1 for below, and then 1 copy of that.